I walked into my own living room and saw the president of our homeowners association standing there like she belonged, boots on my rug, a clipboard in one hand, a pry bar in the other. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. She just raised her phone and screamed, "He's inside the house right now, he's dangerous, send someone." And when the first cop stepped through my doorway, my wife appeared behind me in uniform, and the officer literally froze. "Ma'am?" "Commander, my name's Ethan Parker, and I live in a place called Maple Ridge Estates out in Cedar Falls, Virginia, one of those neat little neighborhoods where the lawns look like they were trimmed with a ruler and the mailboxes all match. The kind of community where you can't paint your front door the wrong shade of blue without someone emailing you a PDF about it. My wife Rachel was deployed for 6 months, and it was just me holding down the house, the bills, the repairs, everything. I figured the worst thing I'd deal with was a leaky faucet or a cranky sprinkler head. Then Linda Harper showed up. Linda was the president of the HOA, and she had that polished, too bright smile that made you feel like you were being inspected while she complimented you. First time I met her, she stood on my porch with a plate of store-bought cookies and said, "We take extra good care of our military families here." I thanked her I meant it, and she immediately slid into business like it was casual conversation. "So your wife is away," she said, tilting her head. "That means you qualify for our compliance support program. I can help keep everything in good standing." That phrase, good standing, should have been my warning siren. A week later, she stopped by again, only this time she wasn't holding cookies. She had a measuring tape clipped to her belt, a phone camera ready, and that clipboard like it was a badge. She walked past my shrubs without asking, leaned down to take photos near my foundation vents, and said, "Routine community assessment." I stepped onto the porch trying to stay polite. "Linda, what exactly are you documenting?" She didn't even look up. Anything that could become a liability, she said like she was doing me a favor. You'd be surprised what people try to get away with when they think nobody's watching. By the end of that month, I got a thick envelope, official letterhead, bolded text, the whole scare package. Notice of violation. It read, and underneath that were itemized issues I'd never heard of in my life. Window trim, non-compliance exterior finish, inconsistency, setback, deviation, safety hazard, review. The recommended remedy would have cost me thousands. I walked straight to the HOA office, really just a converted room in the clubhouse, and Linda was already there, like she'd been waiting for the scene. She pointed at the paper with a manicured fingernail and said, "Don't take it personally, Ethan. It's procedure." "Procedure," I repeated, staring at the list. "My windows are a procedure." Linda gave me a little sigh like I was a kid arguing bedtime. "If you don't fix it, it escalates. Fees, liens. We don't want that." That word lien landed hard. Then like a stage cue, my neighbor Todd Hale wandered over and acted like this happened to everyone. "Man, just do what she says," Todd told me with an easy shrug. "Linda helped me get my stuff approved. She can make problems disappear." He said it like he was grateful. I went home angry, then tried to get practical, calling contractors, pricing materials, doing the math. But every quote felt off, like everyone was reading from the same script, and the deadlines were tight enough to squeeze the air out of the room. Linda helped again, of course. She called me and said, "We have an emergency assistance option for homeowners under strain. It's designed exactly for situations like yours." I asked the obvious question, "What's the catch?" She laughed light and friendly like I'd told a cute joke. "No catch. It's just a temporary compliance loan, and the Homeowners Association files a standard security instrument. Basic paperwork. Security instrument. That's the fancy way of saying we put a hook in your house." I didn't want drama. Didn't want more stress with Rachel gone. Didn't want a legal fight with a neighborhood committee, so yeah, I signed. I signed because the alternative was watching the fees stack up while Linda smiled. A few days later, something tiny cracked the whole thing open. My mailbox had Todd's mail in it by mistake, one of those thick contractor packets. I shouldn't have looked, but it was half hanging out, and the top page was visible. And the estimate layout looked identical to mine. Same formatting, same phrasing, same recommended materials, just a different company name in the header. I stood there in my driveway with Todd's envelope in one hand and my own in the other, and I felt my stomach drop. Not heartbreak, something colder than that. Like realizing you've been sitting at a poker table and the dealer is wearing a headset. That night, I didn't spiral into some dramatic inner monologue. I just sat at the kitchen table staring at that violation notice and thought very plainly, this is bigger than paint and window trim. For a minute, I actually considered folding. I picked up my phone thumb, hovering over Linda's contact, and I could already hear myself saying it. What do you want to make this go away? I wasn't proud of that moment, but it was real. I was tired alone, and the system was designed to make giving in feel like the only adult option. Then Rachel texted. One message short, like she had 30 seconds of signal. Don't sign anything else. Keep every paper. I'm coming home early. That was it. No pep talk, no inspirational speech, just a switch flipping from survive to respond. Rachel got home 3 days later, and the second she stepped inside, she saw my face and said, "Start from the beginning." She didn't rant, didn't panic, didn't even sit down. She just listened, asked questions, and made me lay everything out. Letters, emails, the loan documents, the estimates, the deadlines. When I showed her the assistance paperwork, she tapped one line and said, "This is a lien." Then she pointed at the clause about inspection access and said, "And this is how they're going to get inside." We set up cameras that night, nothing fancy, just discrete clear angles. We called the county records office to pull filings. We documented every scratch, every corner, every detail of the house like we were preparing for court, because honestly, we were. 2 days after that, I got an email from Linda. Subject line, compliance inspection, immediate entry authorized. I read it twice, then read the part that made my skin crawl. Failure to provide access may result in enforcement action. Rachel looked at me and said, "They're going to try something." Her voice was calm, but her eyes weren't. So we made our own plan. The next afternoon, I left the house like normal car, backed out turn signal on the whole performance. Then I parked around the corner and walked back through the tree line like a teenager sneaking into his own yard. And sure enough, an hour later, Linda's SUV rolled up and Todd's truck followed behind it. I watched from my phone as Linda walked up to my front door with a key. A key. She opened my house like it was her office. My hands went cold, then hot. I didn't storm in screaming. I waited because cameras don't care about adrenaline, they care about proof. When I finally stepped through my own doorway, I saw her in my living room with that clipboard and Todd by the hallway with a tool bag. The baseboard near the outlet had been pulled back and there was drywall dust on my floor. Linda turned and put on her innocent face so fast it was almost impressive. "Ethan," she said, like I'd interrupted her brunch, "you're not supposed to be here." Todd muttered, "We're just doing an inspection." I looked at the pry bar and said, "An inspection with a crowbar." Linda's eyes narrowed and the nice girl mask slipped just enough to show teeth. "Don't make this worse," she warned. "You're already non-compliant." Then she raised her phone and called 911 right in front of me, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "Hi, yes, I'm with the Homeowners Association," she said, voice shaking on purpose. "A homeowner is being aggressive. He's interfering with an official safety inspection. I'm afraid he's going to hurt someone." She looked straight at me while she said it like she was daring me to move. I didn't yell, I didn't lunge, I just stood there jaw tight and said, "This is my house. You're trespassing." Linda smirked. "Tell it to the police." The sirens came fast. Maple Ridge isn't exactly used to real emergencies. Officer Mason Reed stepped through the doorway. Young guy, fresh haircut, the kind of cop who still thinks paperwork is the worst part of the job. Linda rushed him with her clipboard, talking a mile a minute. "President of the HOA authorized inspection, hostile resident public safety." Mason looked at me like I was already a problem he needed to manage. I held up my hands and said, "Officer, I can show you video." They entered my home with a key without permission, and they were damaging the wall. Linda snapped, "He's lying. He's trying to intimidate us." And that's when Rachel stepped into view behind me. Uniform, rank, calm posture that somehow made the entire room feel smaller. Officer Reed's eyes landed on her insignia, and his whole body changed, shoulders squared, voice clipped. "Ma'am, Commander." Rachel didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "Captain Rachel Parker," she said, "this is our home. They are not authorized to be inside. And I'd like you to review the footage before you accept any statements from a party with a financial interest in the property." Linda's mouth opened, then closed. Todd suddenly found the floor very interesting. Rachel nodded toward the wall. "Also," she added, "ask why an inspection requires a pry bar and an accomplice." Officer Reed swallowed, then stepped away from Linda's clipboard parade and watched the videos on my phone entry damage. Linda using a key, Todd hovering like a lookout. His face tightened with every second. Linda tried one last push voice, sharp now, no sugar left. The Homeowners Association has rights. He signed. Rachel's eyes didn't leave her. He signed under misrepresentation, she said. And you do not have the right to fabricate hazards inside a private residence. Officer Reed called for backup. When the second unit arrived, Linda's confidence collapsed into angry sputtering. This is harassment. You can't do this. But it was too late. The cuffs clicked and the sound was weirdly loud in my quiet living room. As they let her out, she twisted her head back at me, eyes burning. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. I watched the cruiser door swing shut and said nothing, because the truth didn't need words anymore. Lesson learned: never confuse a clipboard and a smile with actual authority.